Now, it may seem ludicrous for me to postulate that there is no such thing as a bad day, and I thought the same thing too whenever I was 12 years old and first heard the statement, there's no such thing as a bad day. My grandfather actually said that to me one evening after I had just played in a baseball game. I played a lot of baseball as a kid. We'd played a baseball game. Our team lost. We'd had a terrible game. None of our teammates ever got a hit, even let alone batted in a run. Like, we just got absolutely waffle stomped, and I got hit by a pitch actually right on the left side of my hip, and I was limping for about a couple days after that happened. It was a terrible evening. I was so upset, down in the dumps at the ripe old age of 12. That is the lowest serotonin level I think I'd ever had at that time. I mean, my life was over. I was in bad shape, let me tell you something. And my granddaddy he's a good man, well meaning, loved all his grandkids. He's a fantastic guy. And he tried to console me about how terrible a night I'd had. And he, in the midst of trying to talk to me and lift my spirits, he told me there's no such thing as a bad day. And I was enraged by this thing that he had just told me at the worst possible time. How could you possibly say there's no such thing as a bad day? I just had a terrible evening. We lost the game. I got hit on the ass by a pitch. What do you mean? This was a terrible day. And later on in life, as I have grown older and wiser, and possibly more jaded, but certainly wiser, if I do say so myself, I have come to terms with the concept of there being no such thing as a bad day, simply because I've realized that absolutely nothing in life matters. And that is something that a lot of people my age have come to the conclusion of, at least in this generation, that there is nothing really worth giving a shit about. I mean, you can watch the news and see all sorts of terrible things are happening. Lots of people are being infected with the coronavirus, and the people are protesting and blocking up streets and all kinds of stupid shit. And there's no nobody's coming up with solutions to be able to stop the infections, and you got wars breaking out and all sorts of doom and gloom, terrible things, and yeah, none of it matters. You can see all that, you can care about it, or you can take the smart route and not care about it, just like you don't care about your own self, your own house, your own job. About the only thing that I really care about myself is my family. There's nothing really else worth worrying about. I could lose my apartment and find another one. Could lose my job. I'll have another job before I get back home. Call up a couple of electricians and ask them if they got work, and I know they'll take me in. There's just not anything worth getting flustered over, because in the end, everything is replaceable except, obviously, your family, which is why I said that is the only thing I care about. And then just basic things like, certain aggravations throughout the day, like getting hit on the ass by a baseball. None of that stuff ultimately is going to last. Like, whenever something bad happens, you have hormones in your brain. I think, what is it? The stress hormone's called cortisol, I think it is. And then you've got your serotonin and your dopamine, which are related to your mood. And the more of serotonin you have, the happier you are. The more dopamine you have, the more motivated you are, that sort of thing. And whenever you're upset, whenever something bad happens and that cortisol is released, the stress hormone, it acts as like a serotonin inhibitor, and so you start feeling worse, and the worse things are, the more serotonin inhibitor is released, and the worse you feel. And there's always going to be a bounce back from that feeling, because your body realizes that things are going bad and you're in bad shape, and these hormones are being released that are causing a problem. So we gotta counteract that by releasing the good hormones. And so you can have somebody that you love die, and then, like, for some stupid reason, just a couple days later feel as happy as you could be, because your brain is bouncing back from that. I don't know if that's everybody's experience. I know that's been my experience the 2 times I've experienced family tragedy where somebody has died in my family that's been close to me. It's a natural phenomenon. It's how your brain copes. And that doesn't devalue that person or that person's life, the role that they played and how you felt about that person or how much you love them or your attachment to them is just how your brain functions. And anytime bad stuff has happened to me, I've always remembered, and it's a kind of a proverb around these parts, it ain't gonna be like this all the time. Ain't always gonna be this bad, people say. And it's true, because bad stuff happens, but it is what it is, and it's going to be over with soon. And the reason I'm saying all this, because I know you already know all this. The 2 or 3 people that are going to actually watch to this point in the video are well aware that that is a true statement about life. But I'm more making this video just to kind of remind myself of that, because earlier I wanted to hit one of my coworkers with a bus. I really, really hated that old, white, dementia-riddled piece of trash. Yesterday I was told by this previously mentioned individual of ill repute how to install an audiovisual equipment system inside of a classroom. There are 7 classrooms on the second floor of the school that we're building now that require this type of installation, where we're installing a couple of boxes in the wall for projector outlet, the audiovisual plug itself, the internet plug, the telephone plug, the power receptacle for like service for vacuums and stuff at 18 inches above the finished floor. All the sort of stuff that needed to be installed in a very specific way to match the designer specifications. And I drew a schematic while he was explaining to me how this needed to be done, because there is no schematic for how this is to be installed. Typically, whenever you have a complex system, you'll have a wall detail showing you where on the wall these things need to be positioned and what needs to be tied to what, and where the EMT conduit needs to be run. That was why I was drawing this diagram, was just to be able to keep track in my mind and on paper of how everything needed to be figured out. And he stood there and explained to me how it needed to be done while I was writing this diagram. And he saw the diagram. And he didn't say a darn thing about it. Remember, I said that. Okay? Today, I started installing everything. Me and my 2 helpers. Installed everything just fine, up to a point where we needed to run some EMT in the wall, horizontally. But there is wood paneling that has been put inside this wall to brace it so that eventually they can hang a very heavy chalkboard off the wall. And so that wood paneling's in our way now. We need to get a pipe through here, but there's wood in the way, so I called him up. I asked him, hey man, can we take this wood paneling down and just put it back up when we're done? Because it's really in the way of us running EMT. Oh yeah, it's fine. Yeah, you can take the wood paneling down. Okay, cool. We took the wood paneling down. Got our conduit and everything run. We got the installation finished. We were good to go. 1 classroom down, 6 more to go. I was happy as I could be until he came up there to the second floor and took a look at it. Started saying, well, this isn't right. And he saw 2 things that were wrong about the installation. 2 very critical things that, how you'll have something that if there's a problem with it, it's a small problem. Like, say, 1 shingle blows off the roof of your house, you can replace the shingle. But if the entire roof blows off of your house, except for 1 shingle that magically hovers in place, you got a bit of a larger problem that is not going to be as simply resolved. And that was the kind of situation we were facing earlier. And I said, well, this is how you told me to install it yesterday. And I showed him the diagram, and he said, well, no, that ain't right. That ain't right at all. You just heard me wrong. I'm not a violent man. I'm not. But the arrogance of this good-for-nothing white trash piece of shit almost made me a violent man. I haven't been that mad in a very long time. And I'm just going to leave it at that because it's not worth talking about. It's not worth worrying about. Because a couple hours from now, whenever I'm on the way home, driving my truck, being passed by everybody because I seem to be the only person who thinks that the speed limit is actually worth following, you know, be mad at them then, won't be thinking about him. Then I'll get home and I'll play some World of Warcraft because Zereth Mortis was just released yesterday, and I'll be fine. I'll be fine tomorrow. I'll come in tomorrow morning and I'll see him standing there at the Connex, smoking his cigarette, leaning up against the door of the Connex, and I'll tell him good morning and ask him how he's doing. Just like always. Because while I wanted to kill him, and some of that sentiment is still residual in my system, he's not that bad of a guy. He may be one of the dumbest people I know and serve very little function in this company, but he's doing the best he can. He's doing the best he knows how. And that part about him being dumb and serving basically no function is just my perspective. It's just what I see of him. And that kind of factors in the concept of no such thing as a bad day as well. It's all about how you view it, how you look at it. I see him as a paperweight who thinks he's hot shit. That man might be depressed. He might have problems at home. He might have health issues. I don't know. He may have just wanted to lash out at somebody because he thought he was having a bad day. And I get it. He made me have a bad day too. For a minute. Just got to stop and remember that there's no such thing as a bad day. But there is such a thing as an end of lunch break. So, y'all have a good day.